Well, listen, let's get right into it because holy moly, Cassie, we got a lot to get into. It's been a hell of a 365 days for you. I want to start from
Yeah.
that like calendar perspective though, because if I did my math correctly in my research, I believe you went onto the Challenge USA something like 4 months after the finale of Survivor 43 aired.
Yeah.
And so I would imagine, and you talk about this in the opening episode, there's a lot going through your head, obviously having to relive that loss and parse through a lot of the internet's reaction to it. So talk to me
Yeah.
a bit about the impetus behind why you wanted to come onto the show in the first place.
Yeah, it was pretty soon. And that was kind of an intense like finale and like yeah, just like my first time like being on TV and just seeing such a strong reaction like on both sides of like, people having different opinions about it. It was tough. It kind of put me in a bit of a funk mentally. And so
Hmm.
when they asked me to do the challenge, I really was like very hesitant at first, because I just didn't know if my little heart could handle like doing, being on TV again and having everybody talk about me. And but at the same time, I was like, I did well on Survivor, and I feel like I was able to see this side of myself come out that I hadn't really known was in there, which was like my me being able to like physically dominant in challenges. Because I'd always kind of considered myself like a clumsy artist in a way, and so it was like I felt like, oh, maybe I have something to prove here. Like maybe I can prove to myself that it wasn't a fluke, that I did well in that way on Survivor. And so I was like, there was a part of me that was like, like dreading being back on TV, but then also I was like, this could be an amazing opportunity to like really, you know, kind of have a bit of a comeback in a way. But more so for myself. I wasn't
Hmm.
really doing it for other people. It was more so just for myself to like get myself out of the funk, to go off on another amazing journey and just like, and I also it didn't hold the same weight for me that Survivor did. So I was
Hmm.
like, I'm just going to go in guns blazing and do whatever I feel like doing, and we'll see how it goes. And it ended up big working out okay for me, but
Well, yeah, let's start about the first gun being drawn because you expressed this at one point. I mean, the first rivalry that really ends up brewing in the season from a long term basis is between you and Wes, where, he votes for you, gets left out of the plan, and
yeah.
then he says, okay, green team, you send her in. That's the first of your many eliminations. And then you
Hmm.
rally back. They're eventually on the same team. So talk to me about this dynamic and your reaction to your point, like, okay, I'm not going to play a safe game, but then realizing, oh my God, did I start a rivalry with one of the most tenured vets in the house?
Yeah, I really did like come in hot with that rivalry with Wes. You know, if I'm being completely honest, I did not watch very much of the challenge preparing
Okay.
for the show, which was super silly of me. But like I said, I was like very heavily considering saying no because I just didn't feel like I was ready. And so I felt like but there was just like this like part of me that was like, you can't pass this up. And I was worried that if I watched too much of the challenge and it would like make me nervous and scared to play, and then I would just say no. So I didn't want to watch that much to prepare. So I wasn't in full understanding of like what it meant to start a rivalry with Wes. I knew that he was like a big time player, and I knew that I watched him when I was in high school, and I remembered his name and all of that. But I wasn't sure that I knew what I was getting myself into. I just think that like I I just I get very triggered by manipulative people just because of like, some stuff I've been through in my past. And so when somebody's trying to play mind games with me, when somebody's trying to manipulate me and get me to do their bidding, that doesn't fly with me. Like I don't do well with that. So I think like when it came to Wes and I was seeing that happen a lot, and then he was like making people swear on their family members' lives. I was just like, oh, like I cannot vibe with this. And so I think it just like, and I also was like going into elimination, and what you didn't see was like yeah, he like voted me in, and then he had voted for me, and then he had kind of pushed to nominate me. And
Hmm.
so by that time, I'm already like, all right, Wes, you clearly don't want to work with me, so whatever. Then I'm going to the elimination, and I'm like, I might go home tonight, so I'm just gonna lay it all out on the table, whatever. So I kind of called him out in front of everybody, and it wasn't shown, but that's really what kind of kicked that rivalry further into gear. Because I don't know, I was just I was scared, right, and I had a lot of emotions like going into my first elimination, and that was just my kind of way of boosting myself up and coping with the fact that like I might go home tonight. I'm like, let me go out with a bang if I do. But yeah, it was a decision on my part to get myself into that, but it worked out okay. It didn't end up being my demise. So
Well, obviously you were part of like this ironclad, seemingly survivor coalition, but you realize, especially as the game turned individual, like, okay, there's an inner circle and they're more than happy to just throw me in rather than themselves. So talk to me about that reaction from your perspective, being on the outside of an alliance, both on the island and off. How did you feel at that point in the game when you realized that these survivor alumni were a bit more entrenched with each other than you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was multiple reasons for why that ended up playing out the way it did. First of all, like they saw like Michaela, Desi, and Chanelle saw each other as stronger competitors, and they saw me as, which in my mind, I'm like, don't you want to go to a final with somebody that you like are pretty sure you can beat? But at the same time, like with this pact that they had made to protect each other, winning dailies and things like that, it makes sense. And I think that like Desi and Chanelle shared a room together, and they got really close through that, so they were always going to have each other's backs. Like me and Tori got close because we shared a room. Like you spend so much more time with the people that you're sharing a room with. So I couldn't really like I couldn't insert myself into that bond that was like that had already been formed for so long. I did my best to like have conversations with them, have strategic conversations throughout the whole game and all of that. But once they had all decided to turn on me and make this pact with Tori, there really was nothing I could do to sway them because like they weren't afraid of me and they were afraid of Tori. And so they were not afraid to go back on their word as much with me as they were with Tori. And it's like, it is what it is. It did obviously it sucked, but at the same time, like I don't have any regrets about what happened because it allowed me to prove myself, because I wasn't really able to do that in the dailies very much. I was going up against really strong competitors. So this was my way, this was my path to prove that I belonged there and that it wasn't a fluke what I did on Survivor. And so I don't really have any regrets about it, but at the time it was tough.
Do any regrets include that fight with Michaela? I mean, I guess you spoke before about like speaking your mind if you feel like someone's playing mind games, and yeah, we got that sort of
Yeah.
confrontation in the kitchen.
Yeah, well, that was I think that's why I specifically had issues with Wes and Michaela because they both have a similar style of gameplay, and I just think they both have a little bit of a superiority complex, and so it like they can be condescending, and they like they dish out respect very like sparingly. So I don't like being talked down to. I don't like when people try to like use their intelligence as a weapon. And so I think that's kind of why I didn't get along with the both of them. But Michaela she's just a hard person to work with for me in an alliance. Like that's all I'll say about that. Like she's done her best to drag me through the mud in every interview she's had, but like I'm not gonna waste my 15 minutes with you like going into that because I just feel like we're just never gonna be on the same page. She is a great player. Like she's highly intelligent and she's a great athlete, and so good for her on that. But I just don't really I don't really like the way that she treats people whenever she's not getting along with them. And so we're just never gonna be friends. But that's okay.
So let's move on to the vet side of things, because I would imagine when you were on such an island in the house, like you were trying to find any sort of social foothold. And you said you were rooming with Tori. I know that you had a friendship with Josh, at least in the first half of the game. So talk to me about that dynamic. Were you trying to get in close with the vets when it seemed like Survivor was shutting you out?
I always knew that the vets were going to do whatever they wanted to do and that they didn't really care that much about me as like a player. But like I had formed pretty decent relationships with them. So like throughout my time on the blue team, a lot of them ended up joining the blue team. And I had picked like quite like, with Tori and with Corey and Fessy, and then eventually Bananas joined. I honestly got pretty close with Bananas too. Like, maybe not in the way that we were going to play the game together because we didn't have a ton of trust built or time spent together to like be able to really solidify anything like that. And also like I don't know how good I was for any of their games. Like the issue with the guys was they were under the impression that it may be a team or not team like a partners final, because a lot of the finals are you run it with a partner. And so this whole time they have an incentive to keep the stronger women because it's like if they have to run a final with them, they want somebody who can keep up. So I was also fighting that perception from the guys front that like, will I be a good partner in a final? Do they want to bring me to the end? So it was hard to get in with the guys in that way, but I do feel like I was forming like decent relationships with them. It didn't end up being like enough to want to get them to want to save me. I mean, there was a time or two when I think Josh had my back, and I was able to appeal once or twice, maybe like Fessy or Corey not to vote for me, but like other than that, it just wasn't going to make a lot of sense for them to work with me in this these scenarios in this game. So I did my best, and I think like also with the whole Chanelle debacle, like where I called her out in the arena, that wasn't personal to her. That was me trying to appeal to the vets and their like philosophy of you need to earn your place as a rookie. You need to go into the elim. That's how you earn your stripes. That's what makes it you like worthy of running a final. And so it wasn't like if anybody else had been in Chanelle's place where they hadn't won like a daily or an elimination, I would have said the same thing. Like it wasn't because I thought she was weak or because I thought she couldn't do it. It was just me trying to get the target off of my back specifically and like trying to appeal to the vets in that way. But, you know, it didn't end up really working, but it was all I could do, you know?
Now, you're no stranger to the editing of reality TV and all the artistry therein. If you could give me one thing that you wish had made the edit, whether it's something personal, something strategic, something funny, what would that be and why?
Um, I mean, like when I called Wes out on the stand, like my first elimination, I thought that was a pretty cool moment because, like, a lot of times whenever I'm like speaking on the spot, or I don't have a full trust in myself that like what I'm gonna say is like what I want to say, but that night, I was like, I said it so well, so eloquently. I had this whole speech plan, and honestly, it's silly. Like, who even cares? But that just like since you asked, like maybe that moment would have been cool to see, because he was such a huge player in the game, and just to show like yeah, maybe it was a little bit of stupidity, but it was also like I had the courage to stand up to somebody that big, you know. And so I thought that was kind of a cool moment, but you know, it probably would have made the West minions online come after me even harder. So it's probably for the best that it wasn't shown. um but yeah, and then I think like, you know, there wasn't a lot of time to show like my social relationships, but I was like
Hmm.
really close to specific people, like Alyssa S, Tyler, Michelle. I was close to Tori. You know, I had a good relationship with Josh, and even Bananas. Like there was so many times when I would sit next to Bananas while he'd play the guitar, and I felt like he was serenading me. I mean, he probably wasn't, but I was the only one sitting there paying attention. So just like cute little moments like that that I think just showed that I wasn't like alone in the house. I wasn't like
Hmm.
ostracized. I wasn't like this like pariah who nobody wanted to work with. It just made more sense for people to come after me because I was just the easy person to throw in over and over again. But that doesn't mean that I didn't feel like I had good relationships in the house.
Last thing I want to ask is that obviously through the Challenge USA, you have proven that you are a competitor. And I know you didn't do much knowledge in the way of the challenge prior to this, but if you get the ask to go to the MTV version, because I've seen, you know, in the aftermath of your elimination, people saying like, let's bring Cassidy over to the flagship series. Would you take them up
Yeah.
on that offer?
I think so. I guess like if it was like, it's difficult for me because yes, I want to say yes,
Hmm.
but if it's between this one and the CBS one, like I might choose the CBS one again. If like I got both options, but that's because like I like the dynamic of playing with other CBS contestants, like people from different shows, and I think it levels the playing field a little bit. Whereas the people on the flagship show are like all bodybuilders, and they're all like, and like there is this common theme of like just targeting the rookies over and over again. So I'm a little fearful to like go on the MTV one because all those girls are like they're all Tories. Like, I don't know that I would do that well in the flagship show. I want to think that I would, but I'm not delusional about the fact that I'm not like the biggest baddest girl out there. So I want to say that I would say yes, but if it was between now and the CBS one, I think I maybe would enjoy going to the CBS one a little more just because I feel like I have a chance to shine there rather than just get like pummeled in the MTV one. But it would
Well,
be cool to go on the OG, you know, it would be cool.
yeah.